It's Tuesday, May 20th.
We're hopefully going to sit down this week and hammer out a deal.
You said that we would be on strike on Friday. This just gives us that option.
Strike notice. Canada Post workers say they're ready to strike for the second time in 6 months, but add there is still time to return to the bargaining table.
I talked to a couple of people that it sent shivers up my back when they described what they had endured.
The gradual return home has begun for wildfire evacuees in Manitoba. Hundreds of people are home and hundreds of others are still waiting.
It's an extremely important statement, very comprehensive.
Stern warning. Canada, the UK, and France are warning Israel to stop its renewed military offensive in Gaza and let more aid in. And former U.S. President Joe Biden is saying thanks to an outpouring of support from around the world after announcing his cancer diagnosis. Stay with us, Canada. Your morning starts right now. Good morning, Canada. Welcome to Your Morning. I'm Anne-Marie Mediwake.
Good morning. I'm Lindsey Deluce.
I'm Kelsey McEwen. Hope your Tuesday is off to a good start.
Yeah. It took me a second when I was falling asleep last night. All I heard was like, pop, 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 pop.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah, the fireworks.
Sunday and Monday.
Oh, you had both?
Yeah, we had both.
Yeah, I'm sure it was beautiful wherever you were, if you're able to take that in. All right, let's talk about Canada Post because we are now just 4 days away from a potential Canada Post strike. This would be the second in 6 months.
We need to start addressing the challenges that we face as a company.
We've been giving the employer options, and they've refused basically to talk to us.
55,000 postal workers could be on the picket line as of Friday after presenting a strike notice to Canada Post. So if that happens, Canada Post will not be accepting any new mail or packages. Letters or packages already in transit will be held, not delivered. However, social assistance checks and live animals would still both be delivered. Canada Post workers were on strike for 32 days right before Christmas last year, before the government stepped in. Canada Post has said, that another work stoppage, it would be devastating. In other news today, in Manitoba, officials in Lac du Bonny are hoping more people forced out by the wildfire will be able to go home soon.
That the good weather will continue and the efforts of Manitoba Wildfire Services and all of the other people fighting that will be able to allow some movement on that.
The evacuation order for the area was partially lifted over the weekend. Crews are making progress fighting the wildfire that forced almost 1,000 people out. That fire is now considered being held, which means it's no longer growing. Hundreds of people are still waiting to go back. Emergency management officials say more people will be able to go home over the next couple of days. But until then, the roadblocks, they will be up. People living near the site of a fatal shooting in Toronto say they're pretty scared.
I want to find out what happened over there because we are neighbors, we scared, you know.
Well, it's a little bit unsettling, of course. I mean, it's like you prefer not to have any of these things happening in your neighborhood, but this is Toronto.
Toronto police were called just before 5:30 yesterday morning for reports of shots fired. This is in North York. At the scene, they found a man suffering from gunshot wounds in an apartment. The man was pronounced dead at the scene. He's been identified as 42-year-old Lloyd Alexander Hastings. He's Toronto's 12th murder victim of the year. The ground search for 2 missing children in Nova Scotia has been called off again for now. More than 100 volunteers were out looking for Lily and Jack Sullivan over the weekend. The search manager said they did cover new ground, but they didn't find anything new. The 2 children, they've been missing since May 2nd. The ground search was called off 5 days later on May 7th. As for what happens now, police investigators say they will go over the results of this weekend's search before deciding next steps. A joint statement from Canada, the UK, and France is condemning Israel's expansion of military action.
Whether it will have an impact, I think, depends on whether other Western countries join in.
The statement from Prime Minister Mark Carney, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and French President Emmanuel Macron also called for Israel to increase the flow of aid into Gaza. The statement says they will take further concrete actions in response if Israel doesn't change course. I want to show you a live look at Khan Yunis right now. Israel ended an 11-week blockade on aid entering Gaza yesterday, but the UN is saying only 5 trucks got in. The aid hasn't reached anybody yet. Meanwhile, reports from the Hamas-run Civil Defense Agency says a series of Israeli airstrikes overnight have killed at least 50 people. Former U.S. President Joe Biden is thanking the public for their support after news of his cancer diagnosis. He wrote this in a social media post, quote, "Cancer touches us all. Like so many of you, Jill and I have learned that we are strongest in the broken places. Thank you for lifting us up with love and support." On Sunday, President Biden's office revealed he was diagnosed with an aggressive type of prostate cancer, which has already spread to his bones. Prime Minister Carney responded to President Biden's post by writing this, quote, "President Biden, I'm thinking of you, the former First Lady, and your family today. You've always had a deep commitment to family and faith, and I'm hopeful that both will carry you through this." Meanwhile, U.S. President Trump had this to say.
Why did it take so long? I mean, this takes a long time. It can take years to get to this level of danger. So it's a very, very sad situation, and I feel very badly about it. And I think people should try and find out what happened, because I'll tell you, I don't know if it had anything to do with the hospital. Walter Reed is really good. They're some of the best doctors I've ever seen. I don't even know if they were involved, but a doctor was involved in each case.
President Biden's team says he was diagnosed with cancer on Friday. People in the central U.S. are bracing for severe weather today, just days after a round of deadly storms. What? Whoa, that was lightning. Whoa. That's the moment lightning hit a police car. That was in Newcastle, Oklahoma last night. The U.S. National Weather Service says hazardous weather will affect several states over the next few days. At least 29 people were killed by storms over the weekend in the U.S. Midwest and the South. Kentucky was hit the hardest, where 19 people were killed after a tornado destroyed hundreds of homes. Experts have said they're concerned about how cuts to the National Weather Service will affect warnings during disasters like tornadoes. One of the biggest alcohol companies in the world says it's planning to cut costs because of tariffs. Diageo, maker of brands like Guinness, Smirnoff, and Johnnie Walker, well, they are saying it expects to take a hit of up to $150 million a year because of the trade war. Investors were told moves like price increases and cost control should limit that damage. The company is planning cost savings of $500 million over 3 years. Crews inspecting a stormwater pipe in Florida made a discovery.
Weird indeed.
Looks like a baby.
Of course, this happened in Florida. Look at what they found. So obviously they put a camera in that captured that gator, apparently just chilling in the pipe. It's not even the first time crews have found a gator like this. It wasn't bothering anybody. So they just left it. Like, what are they gonna do?